What's up, everyone? Welcome into the All 22 NFL podcast. You got Chris and Ray. All right, we reviewed safeties this week. We did corners last week. If you didn't get to see that episode, please go to YouTube, check that out. But we are going to do safeties today. And Ray, I promised you that I would start things off with your boy from Penn State, Kevin Winston Jr. So Kevin Winston Jr. is 21 years old. He's 6'2", 208 pounds. He played 3 years at Penn State, but he missed almost all of 2024 with a torn ACL in week 2 of the 2024 season. He only has 694 career snaps. In 2023, I'm going to give you 2023 numbers since 2024 was 2 games. But in 2023, he played 132 snaps in the box. He played 276 at free safety and 81 snaps in the slot. Also in 2023, 89.2 PFF grade, 86.6 coverage grade, 92.8 tackling grade, 90.6 run defensive grade, 46 tackles, 0 misses. I'm going to challenge that today, but 0 misses, 21 stops, 1 interception, 3 pass breakups. So this is a guy that before this season was being talked about as potentially the top safety of this class. He was young, right? In his sophomore year at 20 years old, maybe even like 19 for some of it. He put up what was an incredible season, right? But there were some things still in his game that I noticed that I think he needed to improve on. I would have loved to have seen him in 2024 because I do think that this guy has the build and the body type that I really like at the safety position to be successful at the next level. But I do think there are things in his game that still need to be improved upon that maybe some of the other guys today, I didn't see so much of it. But let's start it off. Let's jump into the film. Play 1 here, you see him. He is playing kind of a strong safety. He is coming down. He's kind of walking down. Ray, how long have we been doing this together? Like 3 years?
Yeah, sure.
You know that this play is something that I love. So you see him here. He's turning. He sees the receiver coming. Boom, dude. Absolutely decleats the crossing receiver. If you have somebody crossing your face and you don't decleat them, I immediately take off value from you. And this dude laid him out. And I love to see that. That's the aggression I want. That's how you start to make a name for yourself. That's how you get guys to fear you. Yes, there's a chance an offensive lineman is going to try to find you a couple plays later to get revenge for his guy. I don't care. Do that every chance you get. People are going to respect you, and they're going to think twice about crossing your face. So love that first play from your boy Winston Jr. Let's go ahead and jump to play 2. And this is really where I start to see issues in his game. So draft prospect at tight end coming to block him in Loveland, who is supposed to be a great tight end prospect. What I would want in this situation is for the safety to square up the block, either blow it up or square it up and make a play. But instead, he tries to avoid the block. He guesses, and he honestly just misses completely. And the running back literally blows by him for a huge, huge gain. Like, that is basically unacceptable at the next level. You cannot do that. You will not get away with that. Your coach will take you out of the game. So that is something that I saw pretty consistently. We talk about trends on this podcast. This is something I saw pretty consistently in his game. PFF didn't have this as a miss for some reason, but to me, this is a pretty big missed tackle in my opinion. You don't get to not square up that block and not affect the running back or the back running freely and slow it down. You can't let that happen. For me, this is a missed tackle. So let's go ahead and go to the next play. And the next play is really something I enjoy about this guy's game. This is an ability to be a difference maker with your athleticism, which I think Winston has a ton of. He has it in spades. He comes down really hard on this play. And again, this is potentially a first-round tight end prospect that he stops, he gets there really quick, slows his momentum down. Loveland doesn't have an opportunity to break this, right? If Loveland gets to turn his body and start to head up field, there's a chance that Winston's going to have a really difficult time bringing him down. But there's no opportunity for that, right? He gets to the spot that he needs to be at quickly and stops the progression immediately for basically no gain on this play. So that's a phenomenal play for Winston Jr. for me. That's exactly what I want from my tight end when he's in coverage. So talking about trend, here it is again with the issues that I saw before. This is guessing. Again, he's guessing. He over pursues from the inside, steps too far in, and you don't really get away with this. Yes, you could see number 4, number 20 leaving way too much space, not closing the gap. But when you're the safety, you got to keep everything in front of you, right? It's not necessarily funneling it inside or outside. Yes, you want to banana it outside, but that's not your primary focus. It's keeping it in front of you. And again, he's not taking on the block, right? If he would have taken on that block, the running back would have had to really make a difficult decision, either to go into traffic or go towards the 2 free men coming towards him. And he likely would have had a lot smaller of a gain here. But instead, I'm pretty sure this was a touchdown, right? So like, because Winston guesses, that's freedom, that's grass, right? All the running back sees is grass. That is, again, it's completely unacceptable from a safety at the next level. You will get pulled. The team will not trust you to be a starter. The last play here is, I want to end on a positive note. This should have been a coverage sack. So you look at what he does here, right? I think that McCarthy wanted to go towards Loveland again on this. And I think Loveland expected to be able to beat Winston on this play. He kind of tries to square him up and then kind of sneak from a fade to an out route. Winston was all over it, right? And I think in most cases with quarterbacks that are maybe not as athletic as McCarthy, somebody will make a play on this and get the sack. This should have been a covered sack. 3 receivers here. He has 3 options. All of them are covered fantastically. McCarthy has nowhere to go, and it's really due to Winston doing a fantastic job in coverage on this play and keeping it basically perfect hip to hip in front of him. So ended on that note. I really liked what I saw from Winston in coverage. I think he has a lot to gain as a run defender, but we will talk about the summary kind of mindset of where I have him at the end of this podcast, so we could get that for audio only listeners as well. I am going to kind of introduce the next guy here for Ray. Ray, we are going to be talking about, drum roll please, Nick Emmanwori. Nick Emmanwori from South Carolina is 21 years old, 6'3", 227 pounds. He played 3 years at South Carolina, 2,300 plus career snaps. So that's the kind of experience you definitely want to see as a 3-year starter. In 2024, he played 414 of those snaps in the box as more of a strong safety, maybe even a monster back. 193 were at free and 146 were in the slot. In 2024, this guy had a 79.6 PFF grade, 86.8 coverage grade, 89.5 tackling grade, 73.3 run defensive grade, 73 total tackles, 7 misses, 19 stops, 4 interceptions, and 3 pass breakups. So, Ray, I'm excited to hear what you have to say about Nick.
Can you read off that size again? I think that's going to be important.
6'3", 227 pounds. Do you think he's that heavy?
He doesn't look it, but he has really long arms. It looks like a really long reach. So it's possible that it's just very well distributed because he has a lot of length, but he's not as boxy as you would think seeing those measurements at first.
Okay. All right. Jump into it.
So, So again, keep all that size in mind. Nick Emmanwori, it kind of depends what game you watch, I feel like, of his to get a certain impression about the prospect here. But you're going to see here, one of the things that a lot of safeties will do is kind of play some angles. And again, keeping in mind he's 6'3", 227. I think one thing to note is, number one, he needs to make this play. So we're going to start off on some negatives here, but it's not going to be all bad. Although the Alabama game is one of the ones that you probably would have a lesser impression of the player than you would if you watched maybe LSU or a different game in conference. It was kind of an up and down evaluation, which made it very tough. But in any event, 6'3", 227, I kind of want some consistency here and to not get juked out of your shoes in the open field. I at least want you to use that wingspan to be able to corral a ball carrier. It's not even in the full open field. I mean, the defense is kind of converging on him. There's 4 players right here. Yes, it's a heck of a play by the receiver, but when this happens, you need to get the receiver on the ground. He cannot end up gaining another 15 or so yards, 20 yards on this play. So big size, you think great tackler. I need to see more consistency there. So again, lined up here to the boundary. Again, bigger player, probably going to see more of a boundary type of safety role at the next level, if not big nickel. And what concerns me here is, again, it's the missed tackle, but why is he missing the tackle here? His transition isn't necessarily quick. So there's just still too much separation at the catch point. If you recall Jahdae Barron last week, his drive downhill in transition was so quick that there was no space when the receiver would catch these kind of quick outs. Even though Emmanwori has sort of the size you'd expect from a great tackler in a situation like this, there's so much space to work with, or enough space to work with, that the receiver can cut back, and he's just not in a good position to finish the play. So the transition there from a bigger safety, you start to see some of the issues that you kind of expect from a safety of that size, to be honest. It's a tough role to fill at that size for South Carolina. And here again, the transition, well, I didn't realize I started off with like 3 negatives. Holy cow. Not good, but that was the Alabama game for you. Again, I think they're trying to play a bit of an inside-out coverage. If you look pre-snap, they're kind of signaling that little banjo here. And again, turning the hips, and you'll see it better from the other angle, but the transition, again, to drive downhill on the ball is slow on that slant, and he gives up the catch. And you'll notice from this next angle here, his hips are kind of locked. So he's 6'3", 227, but the athleticism when it comes to transitioning and turning and running is that of a 6'3", 227 pound safety, if you want to call him that. So zone coverage and kind of, that space in the open field, I think is something that could be a bit of an issue here. And then I don't think we marked him here on this play, but number 7, when it comes to what you'd expect from a player downhill, I'm going to harken a name back from last year's class that you'll remember well, Chris. But first, we're going to let it run here on the option. This is Jalen Milroe. I get it, but he's kind of just escorting him out. There's no real explosion downhill here. He's not closing the space at all. Someone likely messed up here, and I would tend to believe that number 6 here is supposed to kind of crash down on the back, and Emmanwori scrape behind him for Milroe on the keeper, which in that case would mean Emmanwori should not have gotten sucked inside on this with his initial step. But that's projection. You can't know for sure. But close that gap here. You're at the 30, and you run him out of bounds at the 29. So there's no space closed here. Milroe right now is at the 30, the 36? You're at the 30, and somehow you allow him to turn the corner and run out of bounds for the first down at the 29. I need to see more. And if you recall last year, Edgerrin Cooper, I think we reviewed his Alabama tape, and we saw him just explode downhill on Jalen Milroe on a play just like that. And they probably have very similar measurements if I were to guess. So some of the strengths that you would expect from Emmanwori, I did not see that, at least in this game. We'll get into that more a bit here. But bottom of your screen here, you see him lined up, and he's finding work. And what we'll see with some other safeties in this episode, I don't see the feel downfield necessarily. He's finding work, which is great, kind of recognizing kind of the crossers here and some mesh. And I don't hate it, but I think if you're not going to have the plus athleticism at the 3rd level of the defense, I want to see a bit more of a feel here. It's almost like a quarterback who has to see it before he throws it, as opposed to anticipating. That's kind of how I view Emmanwori. He's a see it, go get it, not anticipatory type of safety here. You watch his head. He's it's in all kind of different directions here until he finds someone to really sort of plaster onto here. And so just, I don't see the feel with Emmanwori. So that was pretty much all negative. And the counter to this is, if you go, because Chris limited us to 5 plays, harumph, harumph. But if you turn on another tape, another game tape, you'll see more downhill sort of big hit type of plays, but it's not consistent. So for me to sit here and say, well, if you just watched, the LSU game, you'll see a more complete player. That doesn't work in the NFL. You can't show up 50% of the time and I not know what I'm going to get from you week in and week out. You need to see some consistency from a safety. So I think his role in the NFL grade wise is pretty up in the air as far as, what will it take for this player to grade well. I think he's a matchup piece because he is big, he's long, he has speed, not lateral speed, what's the linear speed, to where I think I can match him up in man on some tight ends and things of that nature. But when you expand that role, even if it's a big nickel that's closer to the line of scrimmage, there's still some holes in this game. And it's not that he can't do it, because you see the capability at times, but we're talking about safeties here, and safeties need to be more consistent as the last line of defense than half the time, 60% of the time. I need to know what I'm going to get. And Emmanwori is a type where he flashes, he has a great frame, but potential will get you fired.
I will save my takes on him, but Malaki Starks is the next guy we're going to talk about. And I think he is almost the exact opposite of Emmanwori in terms of what we would expect from the safety position. So Malaki Starks is a 21-year-old prospect. He spent 3 years at Georgia. He is 6'1", 205 pounds. He's played almost 2,500 career snaps. In 2024, he lined up 215 of his snaps at strong, 400 at free, 271 in the slot, and 10 at corner. So this is a guy with really true positional flexibility. He had a 78.3 PFF grade, 72.1 coverage grade, 84.3 tackling grade, 85.6 run defensive grade, 62 tackles, 7 misses, 18 stops, 1 interception, and 2 pass breakups. So, Ray, I did tell you 5 plays only, but if I remember correctly, your excuse last week with Travis Hunter was, he's the best guy at the position. We need to give more of a breakdown. So guess what, buddy? I did 7 plays of Malaki Starks just to kind of...
I noticed that cutting this up.
Yeah.
And it was because that Travis Hunter played both ways. So I was like giving him a, just...
Yeah. Because we were showing receiver snaps, right? I forgot about that.
Malaki does not do that. So you shouldn't break the rules.
So Malaki Starks here is lined up at the top of your screen. He is what's looking like he's lined up in man coverage. Go ahead and run this. He recognizes really quickly that something is happening in front of him. He notices the screen. It's coming in really, really blurry for me. I don't know if that's happening for anybody else. I'm just going to keep talking about it from my side because I remember what happened. But essentially, he recognizes the screen is in front of him. He does what I want to happen, which is squares up the blocker. He does a great job noticing where the receiver that caught the ball is going. He breaks to that side and makes a tackle behind the line of scrimmage for a loss of yardage. That is exactly how you want a safety to play this. The video is coming in much better now. So that's exactly how you want the safety to play that. We could go ahead and go on to the next play. We talk about trends. This is one of the trends I saw on this next play, which is that Malaki Starks really likes to play a trail technique, which is essentially that he allows a lot of times the receiver to get by him. And instead of trying to match him hip to hip, he likes to trail. He likes to say, I am a better athlete than you, so I don't need to be hip to hip. I can just watch and kind of mirror where you're going and just try to follow, like as if there's a rope tied to your hip and my hip. I'm just going to follow you. And then once I see that something is happening and the ball is going to get out of the quarterback's hand, I'm going to make a play on the ball, and I'm a better athlete than you, so I'm going to be able to make a play. And he does that on this play, right? Because he is a great athlete, and it wasn't a perfect throw. But it's something that I saw pretty consistently. He can play man, but he really likes that trail technique. I am not a fan of trail technique personally because I wasn't the best athlete on the field, so I couldn't just kind of bank on being able to do that. I also think, being blind to what the quarterback is doing is sometimes dangerous because at the next level, you will have receivers that will not give you the cues that the ball is coming until it's literally about to hit them in the hands. So you need to have, an eye on the quarterback or an eye on the ball at the next level because you might not get that. So interesting observation. I don't know how it's going to affect him transitioning to the NFL, but like I said, I do think he's able to match. Next play here is him matching the receiver down the seam, which leads to what I think should have been a coverage sack. But like I said, he likes to play trail, but here he does show that he can cover, right? He tries to get hip to hip with the guy. He's running him down the sideline, and it actually is a coverage sack because that is not there. They recognized that he was lined up tight, thinking they could get over top. They couldn't. Coverage sack. It's exactly what you want to see from your safety. You could just enjoy that one more time. Next
you
play.
Love including the sellies on this, huh?
Have to include the sellers. No, because once upon a time you told me that I didn't give you enough transition time in the clip. So I started leaving some of that in there, Ray. That was for you. One of the most important things for safety, in my opinion, is the ability to have sideline to sideline speed, especially when you are on the shorter side, smaller size of a safety at the NFL level, only being probably 200 pounds. But Starks has sideline to sideline speed. And I loved what he does on this play, right? He sees it and he bananas in a way that is exactly how you want a safety to banana, right? Like coming down and then kind of mirroring where the running back is. He doesn't over pursue on this and makes a phenomenal tackle to stop the extra yardage on this play. And it's something that, again, it's some of the safeties we're reviewing today, I don't think can do that. So it was a positive for me, the ability to match it. He's matching it. He sees it and he steps up and just makes a really nice play. It's what you want to see. Next play does show a little bit of over pursuit. It's another one of my maybe like, oh no, I'm sorry. Let's run this one back. I had the plays mixed up. This is a deep pass, and this is also one of my concerns, but there really aren't two vertical threats for that long. He stays on the right side a little bit longer than I would have liked him to. I think he also probably wasn't deep enough as he should have been on this play, so that instead of having to turn his hips and run, he could have maybe tried to come downhill on this and make a more aggressive play. But once he sees that only one of these routes is truly a vertical route, I would have liked to seen him start to kind of glide towards that in his back pedal, which he doesn't have time to do here because I don't think he's deep enough. And it allows the deep play to get completed for really a big gain. I also will say, I think the quarterback did a really nice job placing this ball in a position where Starks can't make a play. So while I do critique him a little bit for just maybe not being perfectly positioned, it really is a play that is difficult to break up, even if he was in a good position. So really nice job by Quinn Ewers on that pass.
What Quinn Ewers did not do too is he never looked to the boundary side there to hold Starks at all. So Starks should have been drifting to the middle too. If you just watch Quinn Ewers here, never does he actually take a look over to the left. He's looking at this side the whole way.
That is a really good point. Yes, that is correct. So next one is the play I was talking about, which is the slight over pursuit. And it is something I saw right here. I think he's trying to determine if the running back is going to break inside or outside. So he doesn't want to lose that. So he sits behind the engaged blocker and his, I think it's his defensive end or edge rusher that's kind of being blocked there, or linebacker. But he does technically over pursue this, right? Like I said, you want your safety to kind of banana this. And I think there's an opportunity that he could have met that guy in the hole and made a play that would have saved probably 5 yards if he, instead of being here, if he was instead at where that the 45 yard line is, he could have met him there and probably, again, would have saved maybe it's probably like 8 yards on this because of that over pursuit. And it's something I did see him do from time to time. Again, it might be because he doesn't trust himself as a smaller size safety. But it's not a terrible job. He does make the tackle, doesn't get blown by. Not the worst thing in the world, but something to keep an eye on. Then my seventh and last play here, it's another time that Quinn Ewers, I think, does a really good job finding a hole in coverage. But this is where things, pause it right about here. Okay. Rewind it maybe a second if you can. Sorry, I'm giving you some difficult details. They're in a zone coverage, I think, right? Starks, I think, again, is supposed to be in a kind of like a half field coverage. He should be in like a deep half. He is biting pretty hard on the deep crossing route right there. Pause it again. And I think the reason he does it is valid because if you look, there really doesn't seem to be another defender that's closing that gap. So he is kind of going inside. If you see there's two guys outside of him that he probably thinks are going to stay with that number 23 who's cutting in. But when you are in a deep half coverage, you can't lose your spot, right? You can't just give up your spot because you don't see, right? Like you have to do your job. You can't just cheat because somebody else isn't doing theirs, which I think is probably the case here. So if you go ahead and play it forward, Quinn Ewers finds that and he sees that and throws an absolute dart right into that spot that I think Starks probably should have been in. And I think in an ideal world, what I would have liked to have seen, and what I think, again, like that elite safety does, is you sit in between the two, right? Like you don't over pursue one in pursuit of another. You stay in between the two and you cut that in half. And I don't think Ewers is able to make this throw if that happens. And if he does, that safety's that receiver is getting his head kicked in, right? Once he's catching that ball. So again, great job by Quinn Ewers finding that very small spot that's open there. But I'd like to see Starks be a little bit more disciplined in where he should have been. But all in all, I really liked Starks, and we'll talk about that at the end. Let's go ahead and jump into the next guy here, Ray. Let me check my notes. We had at number 4, Andrew Mukuba.
You're getting a little better at this, a little bit.
It doesn't sound like I am because I'm not very confident in it, but I am kind of hitting on these. I will give myself some credit. So Mukuba is 22 years old. He is 6 feet and 190 pounds. So very much on the smaller side of the safety position. He played 3 years at Clemson and then this last year at Texas. He's had almost 2,500 career snaps. And in 2024, he lined up mostly at free, but he did have 129 snaps in the box, 71 in the slot. He had a 90 PFF grade this year, 89.7 in coverage, 69.2 tackling grade, 75.8 run defensive grade, 57 tackles, 13 misses, 23 stops, 5 interceptions, and 6 pass breakups. Ray, tell me about this kid.
This is a fun one. That seems to be a lot of misses, and maybe I have to challenge. Well, I'm not saying he didn't miss some tackles, but I may not tell the whole story. So let's get into it. But we're going to notice some trends here about these safeties. And again, I think I always do this disclaimer, right? What we show as far as clips go and highlight here on these episodes are trends that we see elsewhere. It's not necessarily one play that stood out that we go, oh wow, this is great, let's put it in the pod episode. No, we identified trends in a player and then select plays that highlight these trends to sort of give you a macro view and summary of a player. So just keep that in mind when we talk about Mukuba here. But I always talk about how Texas really plays their players to their strengths, and you can kind of get a nice picture of a defensive player in particular if they do multiple things, for that defense and they have a large role. But in any event, keep that in mind. You see here, Mukuba is lined up at the deep safety here, about 15 yards off in the middle of the field. And as we run it, I just want you to pay attention here to his pedal and how he does take away the angle of that post route here. So he has that feel that I was mentioning earlier with Emmanwori, and I'm not sure that I see that consistently. With Mukuba, he's got eyes on the quarterback, deep middle, and as the routes sort of declare in front of him, he's not getting sucked in by a dig or a crosser at all. And as he kind of feels that post open up backside there, he glides to that and shuts that window off. So ideally, I would think that the offense here is trying to high-low the read here on Mukuba, and he's taking away that deep post as he should, especially given the leverage of the corner up top. You'll notice here he's on top of that route, so he's to the sideline, so he is kind of funneling him inside there. So Mukuba's taking away the deep route, and then I think seeing that is what drives Georgia then to try to take the dig underneath. And well, that's pretty bad play by the receiver. That should have been caught. But again, I like the feel for Mukuba here in cutting off, in his pedal, cutting off that deep route, and just taking away the big play for the offense. Which again, you're a safety. That's what you're supposed to do. Take away the big play. So lined up here a bit closer to the line of scrimmage now, kind of rolling down. And what you'll see here again is this is just an athletic play. This just is just in there to show that this is an athlete. So kind of gets sucked in here, then goes to find work, right? Drops, goes back to his drop, but is looking for work, knowing he has some ground to make up here. Identifies, again, he kind of sees this route developing here from the tight end at the top of the screen coming inside. So now he's going to go back to find the football now that he's getting to his spot, and is just going to go ahead and make a play on the ball. So that's, yes, at the end of this, it's athleticism. The result is a result of his athleticism to come down with that football. But the ability to find work and identify what's happening quickly downfield is huge. So I think we have the other angle here. Might have taken it out, but we'll see. But yeah, so again, just an athletic play. I think you're just going to see the tail end of this here. Again, really athletic play to stick with it here and make the play. But again, this all happens because he has that feel and coverage and was able to diagnose what was happening quickly as he made his way back to his drop. So really smart player here as well that can really sort of diagnose as the bullets are flying. So here again, we have trips to the top of your screen here. And one thing we're going to talk about with a couple of other safeties here, and we saw it with Winston a bit as well, but when you have some crossers as a safety that you're either driving down on or you're carrying across the field, you don't want to give up space, right? We kind of saw that even with some of the cornerbacks discussed last week, but on these crossers, you can't give up any space. Here, he catches the route really well and just rides and runs with the receiver. So completely takes this route away, and then you see the check down underneath. You have to be athletic to do this, okay, to carry this route across the field for safety. And yeah, so just speaks to that athleticism, and keep that in mind when we see some other plays from some other prospects here later on. Here lined up at safety, again, like 15 yards from the line of scrimmage here. And I just kind of like this because the running back has a full head of steam and he sticks his nose in there. He doesn't kind of olay it or wait for his teammates to help him out to try to drag him down from behind. You know, it's not a massive stick or anything here, but he stops momentum. And this running back has a full head of steam. As a running back, that's an opportunity to lower your shoulder and just bulldoze a safety. And that doesn't happen here. He kind of sticks him, halts the momentum, falls forward for a yard or two, but given the head of steam that the running back had, I like it. He's not a punisher, but he sticks his nose in there and is willing to make the play. So despite that smaller frame, 6 foot, is he 200 pounds? But he goes ahead and he sticks his nose in there. So I think the last one here, it's not just about the willingness or want to. I also like how he comes down on a run fit here and he actually presses the hole. So the defensive tackle is the one here who actually makes this play for the most part, but a lot of safeties here on these run fits, they will stay kind of squared up here, 2-3 yards from the line of scrimmage here and kind of wait and react. That's not what Mukuba does at all. He stays and fills that hole here and then, comes in and cleans up after the D tackle makes a play here. But you'll notice it here, how he presses the hole here and really gives the running back nowhere to go. If he bounces it outside, the end here is doing a good job of setting the edge and beating the tackle there. So really nowhere to go for the back, but that's a good job of pressing that hole by Mukuba. Look, he's not back here behind 33 as, in backer depth. He's actually pressing that hole and stopping the play. So last play to show you there was just, again, this isn't just an athlete in space who runs well and can make a play on the ball. While he's not a punisher, he has a good feel for the game in all aspects and will stick his nose in there in the run game as well.
I'm excited to talk about him at the end of this. I truly am. Here's a player I liked as well. My last guy that I'm going to be talking about is Xavier Watts, 23-year-old from Notre Dame, played 4 years at Notre Dame. He's 6 feet tall, 203 pounds. He played over 2,100 career snaps, and he played really all over the place. 306 at strong safety, 465 at free, 174 in the slot, 20 at outside corner. So he played all over the place. In 2024, 89.7 PFF grade, 89.5 coverage grade, 78.2 tackling grade, 79.5 run defensive grade, 67 tackles, 13 misses, 23 stops, which is a lot, 6 interceptions, which is a lot, and 4 pass breakups. First play here is really about just, again, angles and speed. So this is a game against Ohio State. I wanted to see him against the best, right? National championship game. Henderson is one of the fastest prospects at running back that we have. And this is a really hard thing to do for a safety, right? He comes down and he does a great job. Banana, right? I'm going to keep saying banana, but he does, right? He comes down hard. He's kind of trying to match. He doesn't over pursue. And then once Henderson sees he has an angle, he starts breaking. But for Watts, who again is a little bit thicker, to be able to run with him and catch up and make a tackle on this, I thought was pretty impressive, right? It just shows the speed that this guy has to make a really difficult play on what is probably a high-end running back prospect at the next level.
Certainly a fast one for sure. So
Right, for sure. And this is just another angle of that play to show it again. Banana. But that's what he does here, right? He comes down, he decides time to get moving, right? Time to kind of start hauling ass, and he does. And he matches the speed, doesn't get stiff arm to the ground, gets him out of bounds. Good play. So another good play here by Watts, and it's really just, I think it was part of the design of the play, right? He's coming down hard with the motion, but he recognizes it so quickly that he beats both blockers that are coming out that could have stopped him. And he makes a play for like a legit 5-yard loss. That was a really fantastic play, and that's what I'm talking about. It's aggressive. This is a player that, to me, just shows energy and aggression that is lacking from a lot of the other safeties. So something I really like. This is just the other angle of it. You see the come around, and he's already there before the cameraman can even get there to see what was happening. This next play here, play number 3. It's another really good angle by Watts, but the result is different. And this is why I think probably some people say, is he good enough to be that top end safety prospect that some people are talking about him as? But he comes down and he has a really good angle, but you can't get stiff armed by a crossing receiver. Like that just can't happen, especially with the way that Watts hits and the intensity that he brings. This is a play I do expect him to make at the next level, and was a bit concerning why he didn't. But he is coming across the field, right, with the motion. You're going to see it better from this angle. So that's him, number 0, right? He gets moving. He sees the motion. He's coming down. So he's playing with speed, and maybe that's part of the issue, right? Is this a guy that can handle playing in that kind of open space? It's a difficult thing to do, right? There's a couple moves that the runner of the ball can do in this position, and he does a really nice one and beats him. So don't like to see it for Watts, but it is a difficult play to make. Next one here, again, I think it's a slight over pursue. That's just kind of a common theme with the safeties today. He's playing this from a deep safety position. He comes down and he kind of over pursues it, where the running back decides, oh, shoot, I probably can get inside. And if you watch it through here, Henderson actually is kicking himself because he's like, man, I actually had him on the inside. I could have made a move. But at the end of the day, Watts does a really nice job fitting him up and making the tackle square. Something I want to see from more of these safeties is making a square tackle, but he does just that, right? He over pursues, but he recovers, squares him up, and it's a great tackle at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think 27 did just enough to prevent a good cutback there.
Yes, definitely. Last play was really my favorite play, and it's, hey, this guy plays the run really, really well. How does he match up in coverage, right? Again, Henderson, who is a really fast receiver, coming out of the backfield and running a deep fade, and Watts is being asked to run with him, but also make a play on the football. And Watts does a really nice job of that, right? Matches him pretty fantastically and actually stays in front of him. So he's kind of slowing him down as well. So you could see it here. He kind of gets in his way a little bit. And Henderson doesn't really have much of a chance to just break away. So he slows down the speed. And then Watts as well. I always say, when the ball's in the air, you are now the receiver. So he becomes the receiver, and he's going up to not try to break up the pass, but he's trying to pick it off. Henderson becomes the defender in this situation, and it's an incomplete pass, but it's exactly what I want to see, right? Yes, this guy's a thumper. He can play the run really well. How's he going to do when he has to match up with a running back blasting out of the backfield? And to me, this proved that he can do it. And especially, again, we're talking about national championship. This is big dogs. This is when all the money gets paid. This is when there's a lot on the line. I like to see it for Watts.
You got a lot of motion in these tight cuts here.
I do. Sorry about that. Last guy you were going to be talking about is Sebastian Castro from Iowa. Let me pull up his information. Okay, Sebastian Castro, 24 years old. This is a smaller guy, 5'11", 205 pounds. I'm not sure he's that, but 4 years at Iowa, 2,100 plus career snaps, 54 actually on the D-line playing like an edge rusher, 154 in the box, only 42 at free safety, but 465 snaps in the slot. So interesting kind of take on this guy. Is he really a safety? Should he be a corner? I guess Ray's going to tell us. But 66.2 PFF grade, 63.8 coverage grade, 61.8 tackling, 76.2 run defense, 47 tackles, 12 misses, 21 stops, 1 interception, 2 pass breakups. Ray, take it away.
Yeah, he kind of, embodies the modern question of what is a safety in today's NFL. With the scheme diversity of offenses, defenses have become scheme diverse to match it, right? And not necessarily positionless, but more versatile on the back end. So we're going to see him lined up in a few spots. To be considerate, I actually only have 4 plays of Castro, but I think that's all we needed to kind of get a feel for the player. So again, taking your directive to a new level while you break your own rules here. But we're going to see Sebastian Castro here. He's number 29. He's going to line up all over the place. So we got to pay a bit of attention here. Obviously, the arrow pointing to him here. Down in the box, and you're going to see 2 receivers and a tight end to the bottom of your screen here. And the ball's right in the middle of the field at the pot sticker, so it's not really a field or boundary type of set here. And just to let this run, this is what I absolutely love to see from safeties. It seems so little, but I harp on it over and over again. So right here, he's got 2 receivers here, or 2 blockers rather, at the point of attack here, and it's really him and 27 on the outside filling here. And he does a great job of recognizing and going ahead and attacking the outside shoulder of the tight end, Guy Scott here, the inside blocker, to try to funnel, I believe that's Henderson, back inside. Don't let him get into open space down the sideline. Funnel him into the rest of the defense. He beats him to the outside, squeezes it down, and then that's his help, and it's a play for no gain. So corralling those Ohio State athletes really early here. Again, you'll notice he's already beaten the tight end here to the outside. There's nowhere for a Henderson to go to the outside, so he has to go ahead and be funneled back inside to his help. So tough player right off the bat, does the little things right, attacks downhill. You absolutely love to see it. Again, lined up closer to the line of scrimmage here. We're going to see some motion across from Ibuka, and he's on a blitz. Notices what's happening here with the sort of cross formation leak from the tight end, and just picks it up, disrupts it just enough where it's a catch for 3 yards. But look at how he adjusts his pattern, realizes what's going on. He doesn't have tunnel vision, and goes, okay, I saw this on tape. I'm going to go ahead and disrupt this best I can. It's still a catch. It's just enough. But if he doesn't do this, if he doesn't disrupt this route or by the tight end here coming across the formation, and he catches this on the hash, and this defender's already pinned inside by the block in the slot, he's got a ton of room to run down the sideline with a blocker in front of him on this corner number 8 downfield. This could be a huge play, and just that little adjustment and disruption within the play is huge. So that's a massively impressive sort of feel for the game here, to do just enough that allows your defense to come help you there. So that could be a 30+ yard difference in just that one play because of that heads up awareness by Castro. So that's the type of stuff that coaches fall in love with and will get guys drafted pretty early and keep them on the field early as well. So here, lined up now in the slot over the tight end here, he's going to fan out and again, just downhill. Makes a great play. Really sound tackle. I mean, there's not much more to it than that. He sees what's happening, comes downhill, doesn't miss the tackle in space. So I think this is the last play here. One thing that's very subtle but really sticks out to me is, remember that crosser that we saw from Mukuba here. And so now you have a traditional sort of safety alignment here to the field for Castro. You're going to see the crosser come across his face. And from this angle, you might not pick up on it enough, but compare that to the space that Mukuba gave up on these crossers, which is nothing. Compare that to the corner that you saw Kevin Winston Jr. earlier on against Loveland, and the space that was provided there, which again was very little. And you just kind of see the difference here, especially at the other angle. So ball doesn't go to the crosser here. It actually goes to the out for a touchdown. But again, you'll notice, especially on this next angle here, he doesn't have that same sort of closing speed and pursuit there to really stick with receivers across the field. So again, at the point of intersection here, he's behind the receiver, and that wasn't a lot of time. That was actually a pretty quick across there. So again, when you have to be able to cut this off, and not allow him to cross your face like that and then gain separation. Just takes a bit too long to kind of drive on this. And I think this is just an athleticism thing where he can't catch up. So balls in the air, goes elsewhere for a touchdown. But I think just a subtle sort of indicator of that athleticism. Downhill player. He's versatile. He's smart. Can make sure tackles and, play half field. Sure. Play some robber coverage. Great. But I think when it comes to sort of carrying routes across the field, not sure he kind of has that plus athleticism there to run with the best of the best in the NFL. So you might be saying, well, that's Jeremiah Smith. And, that's who can run with Jeremiah Smith. Well, okay. In the NFL, this is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're going to have to go ahead and cut these routes off and play with some better angles if you don't have the speed to necessarily just run with everybody, downfield at the receiver position. So just one thing to keep in mind, sound, smart, sure tackler, might not be the most athletic.
Okay. All right. Well, let's welcome in audio-only listeners. If you are joining audio only, you can go to YouTube. We just broke down the film of what we think are some of the best safety prospects in this draft. We did 6 of them. It was actually kind of a lot. I loved it. But we are now going to talk about kind of our overall thoughts on these guys. And I'm going to kick it off with Sebastian Castro. I'm going to call him Short King Castro from here on out. Short King Castro. I have him at 6 in the safety rankings. And the reason I really have him that low is because I'm not sure he's a safety at the next level. And I do think he's a little bit dependent on the scheme that a team will run. I think he's probably more of like a nickel safety or nickel corner. Like, I think he's going to play in the slot a lot. And like you said, he might not have the speed to always be doing that, which might be a problem. But I do like a lot of things about this guy. I think he plays an extremely strong brand of football. He's kind of the missile of that Iowa defense. His downhill speed and ability to pop is fantastic. I also think he can elevate when he's trying to break up passes. Yes, he's Short King Castro, but he can get up. He's got some ups. But like I said, I do think there's a little bit missing from what does he actually play at the next level? What role will fit him? Saying that, I think a team just saw Iowa produce 2 years of really good cornerback prospects with Riley Moss, Snow Leopard Moss, and Cooper DeJean. So can they do it again? Will teams trust that there's another guy in Castro to make him maybe a 3rd round pick? I think maybe that's where he ends up landing. And that's not really the worst thing, because I think that, maybe if those guys didn't come the couple years before, there's a chance maybe this is a 4th or 5th round guy.
Yeah, he's almost like a poor man's Brian Branch. And that you could line him up anywhere and he's going to be in the right spot, right? If he can get there, he's going to be sound. He's not going to miss many tackles. And, he could fill a lot of different roles for you, which, kind of allows you to do a lot as a coordinator. But is he a risk to be sort of isolated by a lot of these smart offensive coordinators these days and become a matchup issue where they will find, they will target him with, their fast slot receivers or, isolate him one-on-one downfield, and will he be able to hold up? I think that's the concern, because otherwise this is a really smart player. And in all 22, he's probably going to grade really well because he can execute his assignments at a high level. So long as he's not asked to do more than he's physically maybe capable of doing. High floor type of player for sure. Ceiling might not be quite as high, but again, there's a role for that in the NFL as long as he's deployed properly. So you have him at 6. I didn't be a good student and write down my rankings. I could see that because I'm ceiling guy anyway, and he's not necessarily a ceiling type of player. So as much as I ragged on Emmanwori, who we're going to get to in a bit, I can understand, chasing Emmanwori and trying to harness some of the positives that are in his game versus the boring sure thing in someone like Sebastian Castro. And the 3rd round is kind of where you find those guys, right? 3rd round, you either take the not tremendously athletic but really sound player, might be a bit undersized, or you take the uber athletic, not necessarily good player right now, today sort of player, and see if you can hit on them. That's the range you typically see that go. So I think 3rd round's about right for him.
So I actually would, if I'm on the board, right, I'm an NFL team, I'm taking Short King Castro over Nick Emmanwori. And Nick Emmanwori is my number 5, but it really is only because I don't know if Castro is going to be a safety and, like an every down safety. I also don't know if Nick Emmanwori is going to be an everyday safety either. And I saw a lot of weaknesses in this guy's tape, similar to you. Like I was surprised that you didn't put any good plays of him, like any like positive plays of him in your review. But I also understood it because when I watched the film, that's kind of what my take was too. Like this is a guy that could play a strong safety at the next level and be okay. Like he could be okay. But I think in reality, he plays a bit more like a linebacker, and I don't think he's big enough to be a linebacker. 227 pounds is a really small linebacker at the next level. I think he at times is a good tackler, and it's usually when he's coming downhill against the run. But this is a guy that I think lacks a lot of flexibility and a lot of positional flexibility as well, but also like in his body flexibility. I don't think he has elite level of athleticism, right? And that might not be so surprising since he's 6'3", 227 pounds. But like you said, even linebackers we watched last year, I think were better athletes than Emmanwori is. He looks rigid. His hips look tight. I don't think he plays coverage very well. I don't think you can trust him in coverage. Like if you're telling me this is either going to be a free safety for you or at times you're going to line him up in the slot, I'm going to say I'm going to beat you every single time then, because I don't think this guy could cover that. I think he's very much has to be played at the strong safety position. And honestly, I don't really trust him in coverage all that much. I see him as well as maybe a third round gamble. I could see situations like you're saying where a team's going to fall in love with this guy and take him higher, or there's going to be a bunch of NFL teams that saw what we saw and he doesn't go until the 4th or 5th round. That's kind of my take on him, but I kind of assumed that you're pretty close.
Yeah, he looks really good coming off the bus. He looks really athletic, and in certain areas he is, but that's linearly. And the NFL is not a linear game. It's more lateral than linear. They use every inch of the width of the field. And, downfield vertically, you have to be able to turn and run. And I don't think he can really do that. I think there's a part of him where I do think he can match up in man against some tight ends, probably not Brock Bowers, right? I think Brock Bowers would have him in a blender, but outside of that top tier of tight ends, I think this is someone that you can put on a tight end in man, and he can run with them and has the length to be disruptive and disrupt passing lanes. But outside of that, man, a lot of these speed and space offenses, it's going to be a really tough adjustment for him. So he's completely boom or bust. And there's just a lot of risk with that type of player because he has traits that you want to see in someone that is scheme diverse and scheme independent that you could just deploy anywhere based on matchups week to week. But he's missing some of the critical elements of the game that you need to actually execute that type of role, namely flexibility, turning and running, and just that lateral quickness. He could, with his wingspan and his just sort of physical frame, I do think the tackling can improve. That doesn't concern me as much because he shows flashes of that. It's more so just there's maybe some missed tackles, more missed tackles than you would like to see, but the ability is there, the capability is there, and he's flashed it. But how much more flexible can you get in the hips, and more laterally quick can you get once you're a grown man in the NFL? That's the question. So the more I talk about it, maybe I don't take him above Castro either. I don't know, but I have him at 5 because he's big, long, boomer bust. If it hits, he finishes as better than the 5th safety in this class, but it's probably not better than 50-50 that he really truly hits that ceiling, and that's the concern.
For sure. I also didn't have like concerns with his effort level. Like this is a high effort player. It's not like you're going to have those concerns. I was thinking of the guy that went to the Rams last year, the safety.
Kitchens.
Cam Kitchens. And like Cam Kitchens was so low effort that you and I were both like, nah, like this is not a guy I could draft. And he did okay at the next level. But I think it was because he landed in a spot where they really maximized his strengths. And I think that Emmanwori needs that as well, where he needs to land in a position where somebody's going to really know how to use him. We both kind of agreed on his placement. I want to know who you have at number 4. And I know you don't really have a great list, but off your head, who do you have at 4?
I don't have a great list. So of the names that are left, I would probably have at 4 Xavier Watts. Okay. And I'm a fan of the player. I like him a lot, but the frame isn't fantastic. He's a bit older. he's high floor, probably higher ceiling than Castro. But I don't see a star in the NFL or the potential to be a star. I think he's a starting safety and he's solid. He's not going to get you beat. I don't think he can ever be a difference maker. I think he's just a sound, high effort player with a bit of athleticism and can do a lot of things well. But I don't see that next level athleticism where when everything gets turned up a notch and is a bit quicker, he maintains that level of, he was a borderline All-American in college. I don't see that level of athleticism translating into the NFL. So good player, safe player, you take him and you sleep at night, perfectly fine. But if you're going to chase some upside here and you're trying to get, you're trying to identify who could be the top two safeties in this class, for example, if he ends up the top two safeties in this as a top two safety in this class, it's because of the failure of some of the other guys and not necessarily because his full potential is at the level of, multi-time Pro Bowler or anything like that.
Okay. So I have Xavier Watts at 2. So but all of what you said is valid and is exactly my note. So just listen to my summary and tell me if it's not spot on to what you just said. I said, this is a really good all-around safety with limited weaknesses that can start in the league on day one. He has a very high floor, but may also have a very limited ceiling. Basically what you said, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that the build is not as much of a concern for me as maybe it is you. I honestly thought this is the one player of this group of guys that I think they probably had him a little smaller than he'll end up being. Yes, maybe he's 6 feet, but they have him listed at 200 pounds. And I think he might be playing more 210, which is good. That's kind of what you want to see. I also think he lined up all over the place. He offers flexibility at the position that I'm not sure a lot of these other safeties can do. I think a lot of them have a role and they know what that role is. Also, probably the number one trait that I need at safety is his ability to see the field as clearly as Watts does. Watts always saw what was happening in front of him and got to the position, knew his assignment, and made a play based on what was happening. Some of these other guys looked a little bit lost. That was not Watts. Watts was always where he should be, but he might lack the athleticism that some of the other guys have to actually finish and be a difference maker on those plays. I really like him. I think that, besides that, I think he can match receivers pretty well. Maybe not the best receivers in the league, but safeties normally aren't guarding those guys anyway. I think his build athleticism combo is fine for me. His tackles, right? He does miss some tackles due to that missing athleticism that some of the other guys have. And I really just buy into this guy as a day one starter. And I think that, again, it's the floor is so significantly higher than some of these other guys that I just can't fathom a situation where I'm taking one of the other guys instead of him. Saying that, is he worth taking in the first round? That's been kind of a conversation at the top of the safety class year over year now, where guys are not going in the first round that typically would have. So I think that this guy ultimately does end up being a second round pick. Although I do think that a team gets a lot of first round value for taking him in the second round.
He also got absolutely trucked by Tyler Warren early on in the semifinal game. Just trucked.
Dude, who doesn't?
Trucked.
Who doesn't get trucked by Tyler Warren? You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
Yeah, good point. I'm not going to blame him for that. I had Winston Jr. at 4, Kevin Winston Jr. from Penn State, but it really was close 4-3. It could have gone either way for me at the end of the day. I think Winston has a much better frame. He probably has the best frame of the safeties in this class. For me, that's exactly what I want my safety to look like. It's perfect, right? He has the perfect shape for it. I don't like that he played less than 700 snaps. Most of these guys played over 2,000 snaps. He didn't play 700, right? So that's concern number one. But awesome build, fantastic movement skills and athleticism. He's plenty of speed. I think he does a great job dropping to his spots quickly and efficiently. He knows where he is supposed to be at all times, but sometimes he just doesn't make the play that he should be making. And sometimes he takes kind of the easy way out. Sometimes he trusts his athleticism a little too much and misses the play. Besides that, we really don't know what's going to coming back from this knee injury, right? How is he going to look in year one? How is he going to look in year two? Is it okay? Those are all big questions to me that again, I would have loved to have seen him go back to Penn State, have a phenomenal year, and be the safety one in next year's class, because I think he's got the frame to be safety one. He has all the traits to be safety one, but he didn't show that he was safety one on film in 2023. We didn't see him at all in 2024. And there may be some side effects of this knee injury lasting into 2025.
Yeah, it's a shame because the one game he did, well, first off, he's a tough son of a bitch. He actually tore the ACL in practice heading into week 2 and still went onto the field in week 2 and tried to give it a go. Apparently it was a partial ACL tear. A lot of times you hear, clean ACL tear is good. So I don't know if partial is worse since it wasn't clean. But that's sort of the diagnosis there. Partial ACL tear, literally tried to go ahead and give it a go anyway in week 2 before obviously being shut down. That week 1 game against West Virginia, he was on fire. He was everywhere. So was pretty much everybody for Penn State, and some players that looked like All-Americans, Harrison Wallace, that ended up not being close to that. So you don't want to take away too much from just one game. But if he carried that throughout the rest of the year and he was healthy, then by all means, he could have likely been safety one in this class because of the frame, the athleticism, and everything you mentioned. But we don't know, and that's always a question mark. So I would have him at 3 also, but 3 with the chance that, 3 with a much better chance of being one of the top 2 safeties in this class than someone to me like Watts because of the ceiling that he has if he's healthy and on point. So that's the real caveat there, because otherwise he can do just about everything. I think really the only thing he struggles with, which as you mentioned, I think he's a very good tackler in space. It's when he has to take on blocks like you showed there, coming downhill in the run game and there's traffic, which is where he kind of stumbled a bit. But in space as a tackler, I think he was fine because he was such a great athlete and has such a great wingspan and athletic build. So let's see what happens with the knee. And just monitor how he recovers. I think it's fair to have him. For me, I have him at 3. I have him at 4. He said it was close. So I think that's fair. And then someone you develop, because the ceiling is certainly higher than that, but we have to see it. And unfortunately, because of the injury, there wasn't much of an opportunity to see it.
Agreed. And the difference is Watts. We see him differently. But Winston Jr., I think very well could be an early second-round pick as well, in that same range as Watts. And it's really going to depend on which team is taking these players and what their needs are. But I think Winston Jr. can very well go in the early second round. I have him right now as a mid-second-round pick, just again because of the value of the safety position and because I would go with some other guys above him. But it sounds like you have Andrew Mukuba at 2, and I have him at 3. I've been leading this off. Why don't you tell us your thoughts on Mukuba?
I'm not sure I don't have Mukuba at 1. I'm going back and forth with him at 2 and 1. I freaking love Mukuba. To me, it's a name that will scare people because he hasn't done much, but he's like a better Daxton Hill. Really fast, 6 foot, athletic kind of frame there that's just kind of flying around. But I tried to find the hole in this guy's game. And the more I watched, the more I said, if he was 1.5 inches taller and 10 pounds heavier, he's clearly safety one to me. So why not just put him there anyway? I mean, so what? Just go with it, right? We ball. But I love his game. He has the athleticism of a deep safety. He has the feel that you want to see for the game from the safety position. And he's a willing tackler. He's willing to stick his nose in there, and he's aggressive. So yeah, it is the bit of a slight frame, the not prototypical size of 6'2", 215 going to show up at times in the run game, or when it comes time to make a tackle, probably. But he's so athletic to me. He might be safety one because everything else he checked every box for me. He can turn and run. He has a feel for routes developing in front of him and behind him. He just has that knack. And a lot of times that's what it takes. If you listen to coaches talk about some of their greatest players, right, at the cornerback position or at the safety spot, they always say when you come back to the sideline, they could tell you not just what their assignment was doing, but what the outside receiver, the slot receiver, what everybody did on that play. And when I watch Mukuba play, he looks like that type of player that's exactly what he could do if you quizzed him right after the play. So to me, I'm smitten with the guy. I understand the risk of the slight frame, whatever else. He's not the biggest guy, but he's not tiny. I mean, he's just a little slender, whatever. It's, he becomes a grown man, gains a couple pounds as a professional, and goes from there. But I love the player. Just tackling might be a bit of a concern. Perhaps run defense holds him down a little bit grade wise, especially early on. But that's the kind of player I take all day.
So like I'm proud of you for taking that stance, because like I love this kid too. Like there was so much I liked about him. Watts got the nod over him because of the aggression he plays with, and I love that kind of mentality at the safety position. I also think that there's a limit to this. Like Mukuba probably isn't a Swiss Army knife kind of guy. Like he's probably going to play free safety at the next level, and that's a little bit limiting, right? I don't mind, because it's really, again, it's what do you want? Do you want a guy that's going to step into a role and be fantastic at it, or do you want a guy that you can move into multiple spots, right? It just depends on the flavor of ice cream you're eating that day. You showed two plays that were like two of my favorite plays, which was the tackle on the running back where he should have got absolutely lit up, but he got his, he put his chest into it. Like he tackled like you were taught to tackle when you were 4 years old at Pop Warner, and he wasn't afraid to do that against a starting running back at the college level, in open space. It was phenomenal. And then the interception where he drops back into the zone perfectly, gets to his spot, plays with intensity, didn't give up, didn't say there's nobody around me, I'm just going to sit down and do my thing over here. He goes to a spot and intercepted the ball. He had no business doing that. Absolutely no business. It was great football. It was phenomenal football. This guy finds his spots well. His feel, you talked about it. He might have the best feel of this group of safeties in space. Amazing. Good ball skills, good movement skills. Not afraid to come up and tackle, right? But it's that stature, right? That stature of 190 pounds. If he's really 190 pounds, you really can only play him either in the slot or at free safety. And you worry that he's going to have injuries. You worry that he's going to not be able to, when Derrick Henry comes up the hole, like what's this guy going to be able to do? Those limitations will concern you. But it's funny because you had a comp for this guy, but I did too. And mine doesn't concern me. Kirby Joseph had the best year of his career and was, I think, the highest graded safety in PFF this past year. I see a little bit of that to Mukuba as well, that kind of the movement skills, the speed, the athleticism, and the similar body type to Kirby Joseph. I looked. Kirby Joseph is about 10 pounds heavier, but that's what Mukuba needs to do this offseason, right? You obviously don't want to lose your athleticism by gaining too much weight and muscle, but I do think there's about 10 pounds that he can add to his frame to be truly effective at the right size at the next level.
Do you think what if the difference between those two is just that, like, one's been in Texas where it's like really hot, he's just sweating a lot in practice.
Other dude's in Detroit just eating cheese curds.
Yeah, like what if that's all it is and he can't play at 200 pounds?
Dude, if he can, I think that this is a legitimate first round pick level prospect. But right now, again, I have him in that early second round area with Watts, where it's just going to be what team is picking at that spot and what team decides to pull the trigger first. I really like this kid too, dude. I think you were spot on about him. But I do have a little bit of a cop out here, but I do have Malaki Starks as my number one.
Make the case for Starks one. It's not unreasonable, but
because I couldn't stop seeing Brian Branch. That's really what it was. I think there's so much similarity in the way that those two guys play football. And I think that if you go back, right, like Brian Branch slipped to the second round. It's why I get so mad at the Packers, because the Packers had an opportunity to take him in the second round. They passed. The Lions got him, and he's been an absolute difference maker for them because he's been a Swiss Army knife. He could play all over the field, and he makes a difference at so many different levels. But Malaki Starks is exactly that. Played all over the field. I think this is probably, in my opinion, the guy I would trust most playing man-to-man coverage against slot receivers, outside receivers, and tight ends. I think he could do all of that. I think he can play free safety. I think he could play strong safety. I think he could play as a monster back at times. Like, he showed the ability to do all of those things on tape, and I think his size supports it. He is a little bit smaller too, but so is Branch. And I think Branch is successful at the next level. He plays the run strong. His angles were phenomenal. He has the ability to match up with any size player, but he does look a little bit smaller than that listed size. And I think he struggles just a bit against deep man coverage. And that's something I showed when we did the film review. So those are really my two knocks on him. But again, if I'm comparing those kind of safety comps, it's like, do I want Brian Branch? Do I want Kirby Joseph? Do I want like a Hufanga like style kind of safety with Watts? Do I want something else, right? Do I want Kevin Winston is more to me like he can be the like the top end safeties in the league today, or like a Derwin James style safety, right? Do I want that? It's like, yeah, obviously you want the Derwin James, but I think the percentage of him achieving that is much lower than Watts achieving the Brian Branch comp. So that's my take. I'd like to hear what you have to say.
The thing that holds me back from keeping Starks as for sure the number one safety, and he might be, there's plenty of time between now and the draft, and we'll see. But you mentioned the deep coverage ability there, and I wonder if he has that last bit of athleticism to really be effective in that role in the NFL. It was you wanted like just a tinge bit more in that aspect in college. So in the NFL, is that magnified, and then does that limit you a little bit as far as having the ability to play him in deep coverage or not? That's the one concern. And to me, again, flavor of ice cream, that's what I value a lot in safeties. I want guys who can run with anybody. Granted, most guys who can run with anybody end up playing corner, so I get that. But to the extent that you could find that upper percentile safety when it comes to just running across the field with whoever, whenever, I think Starks is missing just that bit of it to where, for my preference, is he the number one guy for me, or is it someone like Mukuba? So this is likely a situation where, just depending on the team and scheme, like you said, one might have Mukuba the number one overall safety, another might have Starks, and it's going to be split throughout the league. To me, those are the top two guys, though, for sure. And at that point, it's what are you asking them to do? And are you deploying them properly? Because if you do, both of these guys are phenomenal football players. And these guys, both of them, to me, can be top. And I'll throw healthy Winston in there. You could call me biased because of who he is and where he went to school, and he held my infant son. Sure, great. But I think he can play. That's a true story, by the way. I do think ceiling-wise, if he's healthy, he can. All three of those guys, to me, can be top 13 safeties in the NFL, perhaps top 10, because it's actually not that deep of a position, although it's getting better year over year, I feel, in today's NFL. But I think truly the top of this safety class can actually be near the top of the position group overall throughout their years in the NFL, and that has not always been the case. We've had some really lackluster safety classes in recent years, and at the top, this is not one of them.
Couldn't agree more. I think this is a really talented safety class. And I think that's what people are missing in this draft class is, yes, some of the other position groups are weaker, like quarterback, probably offensive line too. But like there are positions where it's like, okay, safety's super deep and it's really good. So like, hey, just draft based on the talent, right? We say it all the time. Don't draft on need, draft on talent. Going back really quick to Starks, I have him, like, I think if you were to redraft today, the Brian Branch draft, I think he goes top 20. Like I really do, considering what he's done already in his first 2 years in the NFL. So like another reason why I had him safety one, but also my projection for him in this draft is a top 20 pick, also considering it's a worse draft than that one was. So I think he is the only guy that I say there's a legitimate case to have him be a top 20 pick in this draft. So those are my final thoughts. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We've loved doing this. Please give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and X at all22_PFF, and give us a review wherever you watch or listen to your podcast. Have a great day.